Before the Fellowship was the greatest story you've never heard. I'm Greg.
I'm Cameron.
I'm Dan.
Join us as we read and react to the Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. Last time we continued Akallabeth, the downfall of Númenor. Sauron became a key counselor to Ar-Pharazôn and the Númenorians. He led them to completely sever their ties to Eru-Ilúvatar, the Valar, and the Eldar, and they began worshipping the darkness. The faithful continued to resist in secret, namely Amandil, his son Elendil, and his grandsons Isildur and Anarion. Suspecting that the White Tree would be cut down in due time, Isildur, son of Elendil, snuck past guards to the tree and removed a fruit before being assailed. He escaped, and a shoot grew from the fruit. Sauron cut Nimloth the White Tree and ordered the building of a great temple in Ar-Menellos, in which the tree was burned and human sacrifices were made to Melkor in the hopes that he would release them from death. Madness and sickness plagued the Númenorians. They continued to grow stronger and richer under the counsel of Sauron, and now went into Middle-earth to make war on the people there. They slayed and sacrificed the men there and built great temples and tombs. Today we continue Akallabeth, beginning on page 274 of the second edition. Thus, Ar-Pharazôn, king of the land of the star, grew to the mightiest tyrant that had yet been in the world since the reign of Morgoth, though in truth Sauron ruled all from behind the throne. But the years passed, and the king felt the shadow of death approach as his days lengthened, and he was filled with fear and wrath. Now came that hour that Sauron had prepared and long had awaited. And Sauron spoke to the king, saying that his strength was now so great that he might think to have his will in all things and be subject to no command or ban. And he said, "The Valar have possessed themselves of the land where there is no death, and they lie to you concerning it, hiding it as best they may because of their avarice and their fear lest the kings of men should wrest from them the deathless realm and rule the world in their stead. And though, doubtless, the gift of life unending is not for all, but only for such as are worthy, being men of might and pride and great lineage, yet against all justice is it done that this gift, which is his due, should be withheld from the King of Kings, Ar-Pharazôn, mightiest of the sons of earth, to whom Manwë alone can be compared, if even he. But great kings do not brook denials, and take what is their due." Then Ar-Pharazôn, being besotted and walking under the shadow of death, for his span was drawing towards its end, hearkened to Sauron, and he began to ponder in his heart how he might make war upon the Valar. He was long preparing this design, and he spoke not openly of it, yet it could not be hidden from all. And Amandil, becoming aware of the purposes of the king, was dismayed and filled with a great dread, for he knew that men could not vanquish the Valar in war, and that ruin must come upon the world if this war were not stayed. Therefore he called his son Elendil, and he said to him, "The days are dark, and there is no hope for men, for the faithful are few. Therefore I am minded to try that counsel which our forefather Eärendil took of old, to sail into the west, be there ban or no, and to speak to the Valar, even to Manwë himself, if may be, and beseech his aid ere all is lost." "Would you then betray the king?" said Elendil. For you know well the charge that they make against us, that we are traitors and spies, and that until this day it has been false. If I thought that Manwë needed such a messenger, said Amandil, I would betray the king. For there is but one loyalty from which no man can be absolved in heart for any cause. But it is for mercy upon men and their deliverance from Sauron the deceiver that I would plead, since some at least have remained faithful. And as for the ban, I will suffer in myself the penalty, lest all my people should become guilty. But what think you, my father, is like to befall those of your house whom you leave behind when your deed becomes known? It must not become known, said Amandil. I will prepare my going in secret, and I will set sail into the east, whither daily the ships depart from our havens. And thereafter, as wind and chance may allow, I will go about, through south or north, back into the west, and seek what I may find. But for you and your folk, my son, I counsel that you should prepare yourselves other ships, and put aboard all such things as your hearts cannot bear to part with. And when the ships are ready, you should lie in the haven of Romena, and give out among men that you purpose, when you see your time, to follow me into the east. Amandil is no longer so dear to our kinsman upon the throne that he will grieve over much if we seek to depart for a season or for good. But let it not be seen that you intend to take many men, or he will be troubled because of the war that he now plots, for which he will need all the force that he may gather. Seek out the faithful that are known still to be true, and let them join you in secret if they are willing to go with you and share in your design. And what shall that design be? Said Elendil. To meddle not in the war and to watch, answered Amandil. Until I return, I can say no more. But it is most like that you shall fly from the land of the star with no star to guide you, for that land is defiled. Then you shall lose all that you have loved, for tasting death in life, seeking the land of exile elsewhere. But east or west, the Valar alone can say. Then Amandil said farewell to all his household, as one that is about to die. For, said he, it may well prove that you will see me never again, and that I shall show you no such sign as Eärendil showed long ago. But hold you ever in readiness, for the end of the world that we have known is now at hand. It is said that Amandil set sail in a small ship at night, and steered first eastward, and then went about and passed into the west. And he took with him 3 servants dear to his heart, and never again were they heard of by word or sign in this world, nor is there any tale or guess of their fate. Men could not a second time be saved by any such embassy, and for the treason of Númenor there was no easy absolving. But Elendil did all that his father had bidden, and his ships lay off the east coast of the land. And the faithful put aboard their wives and their children, and their heirlooms, and great store of goods. Many things there were of beauty and power, such as the Númenorians had contrived in the days of their wisdom, vessels and jewels, and scrolls of lore written in scarlet and black. And 7 stones they had, the gift of the Eldar. But in the ship of Isildur, but in the ship of Isildur was guarded the young tree, the scion of Nimloth the Fair. Thus Elendil held himself in readiness, and did not meddle in the evil deeds of those days, and ever he looked for a sign that did not come. Then he journeyed in secret to the western shores, and gazed out over the sea, for sorrow and yearning were upon him, and he greatly loved his father. But naught could he descry, save the fleets of Ar-Pharazôn gathering in the havens of the west. Now, aforetime in the Isle of Númenor, the weather was ever apt to the needs and liking of men, rain in due season, and ever in measure, and sunshine, now warmer, now cooler, and winds from the sea. And when the wind was in the west, it seemed to many that it was filled with a fragrance, fleeting but sweet, heart-stirring, as of flowers that bloom forever in undying meads, and have no names on mortal shores. But all this was now changed, for the sky itself was darkened, and there were storms of rain and hail in those days, and violent winds. And ever and anon a great ship of the Númenorians would founder, and return not to haven, though such a grief had not till then befallen them, since the rising of the star. And out of the west there would come at times a great cloud in the evening, shaped as it were an eagle, with pinions spread to the north and the south, and slowly it would loom up, blotting out the sunset. And then uttermost night would fall upon Númenor, and some of the eagles bore lightning beneath their wings, and thunder echoed between sea and cloud. Then men grew afraid. Behold, the eagles of the lords of the west, they cried. The eagles of Manwë are come upon Númenor, and they fell on their faces. Then some few would repent for a season, but others hardened their hearts, and they shook their fists at heaven, saying, The lords of the west have plotted against us. They strike first. The next blow shall be ours. These words the king himself spoke, but they were devised by Sauron. Now the lightnings increased and slew men upon the hills, and in the fields, and in the streets of the city, and a fiery bolt smote the dome of the temple, and shore it asunder, and it was wreathed in flame. But the temple itself was unshaken, and Sauron stood there upon the pinnacle, and defied the lightning, and was unharmed. And in that hour men called him a god, and did all that he would. When therefore the last portent came, they heeded it little, for the land shook under them, and a groaning as of thunder underground was mingled with the roaring of the sea, and smoke issued from the peak of the Meneltarma. But all the more did Ar-Pharazôn press on with his armament. In that time the fleets of the Númenorians darkened the sea upon the west of the land, and they were like an archipelago of 1,000 isles. Their masts were as a forest upon the mountains, and their sails like a brooding cloud, and their banners were golden and black, and all things waited upon the word of Ar-Pharazôn. And Sauron withdrew into the inmost circle of the temple, and men brought him victims to be burned. Then the eagles of the lords of the west came up out of the dayfall, and they were arrayed as for battle, advancing in a line, the end of which diminished beyond sight. And as they came, their wings spread ever wider, grasping the sky. But the west burned red behind them, and they glowed beneath, as though they were lit with the flame of great anger, so that all Númenor was illumined, as with the smoldering fire. And men looked upon the faces of their fellows, and it seemed to them that they were red with wrath. Then Ar-Pharazôn hardened his heart, and he went aboard his mighty ship, Alcarondas, castle of the sea. Many oared it was, and many masted, golden and sable. And upon it the throne of Ar-Pharazôn was set. Then he did on his panoply and his crown, and let raise his standard, and he gave the signal for the raising of the anchors, and in that hour the trumpets of Númenor outrang the thunder. Thus the fleets of the Númenorians moved against the menace of the west. And there was little wind, but they had many oars and many strong slaves to row beneath the lash. The sun went down, and there came a great silence. Darkness fell upon the land, and the sea was still, while the world waited for what should betide. Slowly the fleets passed out of the sight of the watchers in the havens, and their lights faded, and night took them, and in the morning they were gone. For a wind arose in the east, and it wafted them away, and they broke the ban of the Valar and sailed into forbidden seas, going up with war against the deathless, to wrest from them everlasting life within the circles of the world. In summary, as Ar-Pharazôn aged, Sauron urged him to make war on the Valar and claim the land of the deathless. Amandil decided to sail into the west, like Eärendil his forefather, to seek the pardon of the Valar. He counseled Elendil to take any remaining faithful men and flee from Númenor before the outbreak of war. These men took with them their families and heirlooms, namely the 7 stones and the sapling from the fruit of Nimloth the White Tree. A great eagle-shaped cloud came out of the west. Ar-Pharazôn boarded his great ship, Alcarondas, Castle of the Sea, and he and the mighty fleet of Númenor disappeared into the western sea. Something big's coming.
Yep.
If you like what you hear, I have a question. I don't know what this line means. So at 275, about halfway down, this is Amandil speaking. If I thought that Manwë needed such a messenger, I would betray the king. For there is but one loyalty from which no man can be absolved in heart for any cause. I don't know what that means.
Wait, you said about halfway down?
275.
What's the first words again?
For there is but one loyalty from which no man can be absolved in heart for any cause. Is he saying that he has a loyalty to the king?
279?
I think
275.
75. I think Elendil is saying, so the context is he's decided that he's going to do something like what Eärendil did,
Right,
and sail into the west and plead to the Valar, right? I think Elendil is saying, he's suggesting that would be to the king and to the men loyal to the king, that would be seen as betrayal because they're in opposition to the Valar. And so he's saying that mission of sending a messenger is like a worthy cause for someone like betraying the king.
so there's a loyalty that's higher than to the king, basically.
I guess so, but I think part of it too is he's kind of like using that language, but I think what he's really suggesting is that's not betrayal of the king. That's it's a mercy to the king, perhaps, or to the people to do this. Although he might be saying, like, to me, it kind of reads as like, if this is betrayal, so be it. You know, that kind of attitude. Like, this is what I'm set to.
Oh, for any cause refers to the king. So he says, but there's one loyalty from which no man can be absolved.
Which they've already betrayed.
Right.
They've already betrayed their loyalty to the Valar, so it's like, we have to go plead. Because, yes, sure, it is unloyal to betray the king, but there's a greater loyalty here that we are subservient to, and we've already ruptured that.
Okay, then what really stuck out to me is in the middle of 276, I was surprised because, it's like we've seen this before. An embassy sails and pleads on behalf of the woes of Middle-earth. This time it's Númenor. But in this case, the treason of Númenor, there was no easy absolving. Which is to say, it seems like that's saying that this is a worse situation than the slaying of the kindred, the, doom of Mondos, even the crimes, perhaps, of Melkor, his first crimes that he was imprisoned for, that what the Númenorians are doing is the worst it's ever been. Or at least in terms of the things that they've sought to absolve, which is surprising. The only difference I see, because they do slay their own kin, is the worship. It's the manner of their how they twist even the holiest things. And that's the difference I see, is that their worship as well has gone astray.
How did the first pleading go from Eärendil?
It wasn't Eärendil who was first to plead. It was someone. It was one of the elf kings who pleaded, but he wasn't able to plead on behalf of men. I forget. But Eärendil was able to plead on their behalf because he was of both houses.
Well, Ulmo pleaded on their behalf.
That's what it was.
Sure.
But
sorry. How did Eärendil's go?
it went pretty well.
Yeah.
Well,
They
I'm
went
just
to war
wondering
and
because obviously it went well, but the second time it cannot be saved by such an embassy. I mean, part of it probably is the nature of how egregious the state of men had become, but then also that's it's also the second time. Everyone deserves second chances, maybe, in the eyes of the Valar, maybe everyone deserves a second chance. But
What are you saying is the second time?
I'm saying Amandil is the second time. Eärendil is the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And Eärendil's pleading, I'm just wondering the nature of it. Do you know what page it's on? Because it'd be interesting to read that back to see if there's clues to
276. It's right in the middle.
No.
Tells.
Eärendil's pleading. So way back, is there a clue in there to okay, they kind of promised that they would do X, and then now they've super betrayed that. It's not just. There's no easy way to absolve it because there's kind of there was an expectation or a covenant or some kind of contract or something that was set.
All right, I found it. This is page 249.
I was just there, Greg.
It's funny. It doesn't even give him specific words. It just says, Eärendil stood before their faces and delivered the errand of the two kindreds. Pardon he asked for the Noldor, and pity for their great sorrows, and mercy upon men and elves, and succor in their need. And his prayer was granted. That's it. It doesn't go into any. So I think to answer your question, it's not the nature of the pleading. There's something, I think what Cameron is getting at was there's something different about their situation. And I think part of it maybe is, it's hard to say because Melkor was really the source of all the woe in the first pleading. Even from the very beginning, destroying the trees and putting Feanor in a situation where people, asked him to destroy the Silmarils to make new trees, and he was unwilling to do so. So Melkor is kind of at the root of all that stuff. But there is something about, I think, Dan, you've made this case in the past that Feanor pursuing the Silmarils was it was a just thing to do. Like, they were his creation and his by right, and they were stolen. So it was just for him to pursue them. But it was more like the manner that he did it that was so egregious. So there's something in there that's like, that is pitiable. And maybe you could say this, make the same case for Númenor too, because they were lied to by Sauron. But I think the root of their problems comes from even before Sauron's influence. It was the neglect of their offering. It was this mistrust, this like obsession with death, and this mistrust of the Valar. That just kind of came, like, I think the way that Alcarondas puts it is that these are the seeds of Melkor's evil still. But they didn't have like the personified evil before them, pushing them until Sauron came. I don't know. I mean, you'd really have to go through and break down the differences between each of them. But maybe it's just like, there's just, we're only going to do that once. Because you should have learned from that.
I mean, as Cameron was saying, like the kind of sacrifices, they're really egregious, but they're also predicated upon a complete like abandonment of Ilúvatar as the one. Like,
they're worshiping Melkor.
It's like Melkor. So the treason of Númenor is, there's no easy way to resolve that. It's like, I mean, they're not even in a place of repentance. So someone could come
But wasn't, I mean, even I think in previous readings in the Silmarillion, it says things like this deed of Melkor was like seen as the most egregious in the eyes of Ilúvatar and things like that, right? Like, there were things he did that were
twisting the elves.
Yes, that was one of them. Yeah, so there's things that happened there.
But Melkor wasn't absolved for that.
That's true.
This is saying the treason of Númenor is not as easy to absolve as the treason of the Eldar. Would be another way to put it.
Yeah, and there's good reason, because, well, firstly, the men, like Amandil, cannot speak on behalf of all the men because they're not all in a place of repentance. They're not all in a place of like, we turn away from this. So that's part of the problem. And then another part of the problem is that like, it's just, there's a lack of recognition of needing absolution. How can you absolve a person who doesn't want to be absolved?
Yeah.
I love the eagles.
The eagles are always fun whenever they show up.
In the movies, they're just like big birds. Yeah. But here it talks about like an eagle, first of all, that comes at night and like spreads from the north to the south and just covers the sky and the stars like a giant cloud.
Yeah.
That's so terrifying and visual.
Do the eagles talk in the movies?
No.
Okay. So they're just kind of dumb animals that come in and like save the day by happen chance.
Yeah, they're not really beings that are displayed as beings.
And here they're displayed as lords. Mm-hmm. And it's regal.
They're so
cool. Am I misreading it? Like, it sounds like I'm having trouble determining if this is literal or figurative, but the text says clouds. They're clouds that look like eagles. A great cloud shaped, as it were, an eagle.
Oh, right. But then
you have eagles bearing lightning.
Well,
then the eagles of the Lords of the West came up out of the dayfall, and they were arrayed as for battle, advancing in a line. So it's confirmed that, like, it's not just...
Wait, where are you reading that?
That's the bottom of 277. But earlier at the top of that page, it talks about the clouds shaped like an eagle, right? And then the men say, "Behold, the eagles of the Lord of the West." But it's just the clouds, right?
It reads to me like a reveal, kind of. Like they look up, it's a cloud, and it's like that's shaped like an eagle, and it looks like those wings are spreading all the way from the north to the south. You know, and the fact that it blots out the sunset and brings uttermost night on Númenor, and then other eagles bear lightning beneath their wings.
It's the language of mythology. It's
sure,
but it is confirmed because I mean later on it says, "Then the eagles of the Lord of the West came out upon the dayfall." But there is still that.
What do you think was a bigger spectacle, this, or when that Pop-Tart mascot at the Pop-Tarts Bowl went into the toaster oven or the toaster?
I'm not American enough to know that reference.
I haven't read that expanded story mythology from Tolkien's. Is that which book is that?
It's from the extended edition of the Titanic.
Yeah.
This is like 6 months late, or like 8 maybe for our listeners. But there was like one of the college football bowl games was sponsored by Pop-Tarts, and they had this edible Pop-Tart mascot who went into a toaster. So he wasn't really.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
At the end of the game, he stood on a toast, like a big toaster, and went into the toaster, and then at the bottom slid an actual like large Pop-Tart that the winning team won. Winning team got to eat. It's horrifying, but
it sounds kind of like weird and almost ritualistic.
No, yeah, it's just mythology. You're not supposed to read it like literally, though.
I saw it happen.
As it were a Pop-Tart, like a Pop-Tart, descending into the toaster.
All right, I sent an image for you to see in the chat.
Okay, here's a question. So Ar-Pharazôn's going to battle, and then Sauron withdraws into the inmost circle of the temple and burns some more victims. Why?
Just out of
just
enjoyment.
Hatred?
You know what it makes me? Have you ever heard? It's like a parable kind of thing. I don't know if this is a real thing, but to like catch wolves in the frozen north, they had like layer blood on a blade, layers and layers of blood, and then like planted in the snow.
Yeah.
And the wolves would just like get in a frenzy when they tasted the blood. They would just get in a frenzy and kill themselves.
Their tongue would be numb, so they wouldn't feel the pain. Yeah.
And then they'd. Did you make this up? Did you make up this parable, Dan?
No, I definitely didn't make this parable.
You've heard this, right?
I don't even know if I've heard it.
Anyway, the point is, like the idea is like this creature has gotten into such a frenzy that it's like killing itself, and not even realizing it. Maybe that's kind of like Sauron's experience here, where he's been orchestrating all this stuff, and he's just so swept up in his hatred for the Valar and everything that he's just like, keep bringing him in.
Yeah, it's almost like his parade. It's just he's celebrating. He's just like, I have the power. I'm just going to do my little dance. Like,
where is
277 at the bottom, near the bottom.
Do you think he's like offering victims to Melkor as a part of this? It's like there's almost a dark, I don't know, quid pro quo.
I don't know if he's worshiping
I scratch
Melkor.
your back, you scratch mine. You scratch ours.
I think he serves Melkor. I don't see him worshiping Melkor. I think he's just burning the victims because he finally can just reveal his true face. And he has this moment.
Well, okay, let me add this into the mix here.
Okay.
Is he not a necromancer, or he becomes a necromancer?
He is.
So maybe
Sauron?
he is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he is.
He's the necromancer? I thought the Witch King was.
No, he is.
So maybe he does have some kind of powers associated with death or whatever. Like
That's
maybe if you
interesting.
sacrificed one of the faithful that had a nice beard, he too would develop a very nice beard.
I think that's physics. Yeah, that would make sense. So I guess we'll see what happens when they go, since they're going up with war against the deathless. We'll see how that works out for them.
Yeah, and this next reading that we have is the last one of Akalabeth, so we'll hear the whole thing.
Oh, that's even creepier. That yeah. Sorry, I'm just letting that sink in. That Sauron is the necromancer. Like he's doing his thing. He's practicing. He's like involved in practicing it. Although, from what I understand, right, a necromancer is more something that brings the dead alive in a dead state. So is he
I
like?
think so, yeah.
Preparing. Yeah, that's kind of gruesome.
Yeah. Well, if you like what you hear, or if you don't, go ahead and rate us 3 Silmarils out of 3. Follow us everywhere before the fellowship. Join the discussion on Discord, and send any comments or questions to beforethefellowship@gmail.com. Should we do our live reading?
Yeah, do a live reading because we can't end on the note.
Well, I
of,
love
like,
how you
dead.
left no options for anyone to not rate us 3 out of 3 because you said if you like what you hear and if you don't like what you hear.
Yeah.
So
if it was just average, don't rate us at all.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Good point.
All right, we're gonna do some blind email reads.
Why haven't you returned my calls?
I haven't opened the email in quite a while. So this one's from February 13th from Tracy. It says, "Where did you guys go?" We can't even read this. Tracy,
you got to cut this, Cameron, and put this at the beginning of the first one that we publish.
Thank you for this nice message. I love your show, but I haven't been able to get anything after episode 62. What happened? Are you guys okay? You are so missed. I hope you all are okay.
Oh, regards, Tracy, thank you.
Could you imagine? That is a very nice message. Thank you, Tracy. Could you imagine, though, that something did happen to all 3 of us separately, where we were incapacitated or dead or something? That would really be something.
It would.
Like if something happened to one of us, the other 2 would show up and say, "We're really sorry to say this, but Dan died."
Ooh.
Dan sailed west, pleading our cause to...
Greg went to sacrifice people.
Yeah.
Cameron became Mongolian spouse.
There's 2 more. There's 2 more we got to get through. There's 2 more. Here's the next one from William. He says, "Is the Arkenstone a Silmaril? At the end, one falls into the ocean, one falls into the earth, and one is flying on a ship in the heavens." I'm going to be honest. I don't even know what the Arkenstone is. Is that?
It was in the Hobbit.
Arkenstone is the dwarves' most prized treasure. But wait, is he saying that the same things that happen to the Silmarils happen to the Arkenstone?
I think I think what he's saying, one of the Silmarils, one of the Silmarils falls into the earth, and the Arkenstone was discovered beneath the roots of the Lonely Mountain, is what I'm reading on Tolkien Gateway.
Yep.
I say 100% yes.
100% yes.
Wait, 100% yes what? It's a Silmaril?
It is a Silmaril.
No. That would be amazing.
Speaking of the Silmarils, I was watching Lord of the Rings, and you know when Frodo has that phial of Galadriel?
Yeah.
Did I mention this already?
No.
It's the light of Elendil?
Yeah.
Eärendil.
Well, Elendil...
What?
Which I think is the same as the light of Eärendil.
You're talking about The one who's flying around in the sky.
The one who flies around the sky, his name's Eärendil. But in the film, they say the light of Elendil.
Go ahead.
And that's from the Silmarillion. So it's cool. It's like in.
Oh, I see what you're
in the
saying
film.
now.
That light is from a Silmarillion, and it's in Lord of the Rings.
That's great. I'm with you now. One more email?
Yeah, go ahead. Well, two more. If we only have three, why would we leave someone
Dan,
else?
send him an email.
This is from Calibri. It says, "Hey guys, as a longtime Tolkien fan over 40 years, I love your podcast. I've totally been on the edge of my seat for the next episode. I notice it's been a while now."
Oh man, can you imagine him sitting on the edge of his seat for 9 months?
I think it's a girl.
This is from April 19th. So
that's pretty recent.
Been a couple months.
Is that the end of the email?
I notice it's been a while now, so I wanted to let you know you have fans who are hoping you pick it back up again. If you need to hear that encouragement, hoping that something bad hasn't happened to anyone, and that's why it's on hold. All the best, Libri. These are so sweet.
You are so sweet. Thank you.
We really don't deserve this kind of.
Let's have
We've let you down, and we are genuinely sorry for that. But we hope that we have. By the time you're listening to this, how many have we recorded?
10?
8, 9, 10. So we are going to finish it, and then we probably will be doing the One Ring game too, if we can find a.
Oh my gosh! Give me a break, literally.
DM.
Yeah, I got to talk to Andy about that. He was a fan favorite. People liked Andy.
Yeah, he's great.
Andy's great, but he was like, if we do the One Ring, then can I use the rules from Star Wars?
And he said no.
I said, well, I didn't say no, but
I
think it's a no because it's its own proprietary system that is pretty awesome.
Okay. Well, join us next week as we read The Greatest Story You've Never Heard, The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien.
Is it okay if I record this?
Yeah, I think it's all right.
All right.
Greg, is it okay if you read the book?
Yeah, could you read today? Could you do the intro as well?
Okay.
Can you do it?
I'll just close my eyes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You go ahead and start reading. Just turn out the light on your way out.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got it.
Can you tuck me in, Greg?
I thought you were going to say before, but then you went,
All right, here we go. Before the Fellowship was the greatest story you've never heard. I'm Greg.
I'm Cameron.
I'm Dan.
Join us as we read and react to The Silmarillion by J.R.R.
His name is kind of funny. Like, it is. It really is.
What if you had like 5 middle names? It took forever to say all the letters.
To be fair, two middle names is quite a lot, especially when they both begin with R.
Yeah, but 5 would be absurd.
Yeah.
By J.R.R. Tolkien.
M-L-N.
Greg is dead.